Hey, this is Coach Charles with Fit Health USA in Herndon, Virginia. What am I holding here today? Last year I ran or completed my first Tough Mudder. And what I want to talk to you guys about today is having something to train for. So this whole series, this 8 or 9 part series, is all going to be about behaviors that you want to put into place in your daily life so that you can not only lose the weight but keep it off permanently. Lose that body fat, keep it off permanently, right? So this is my little prop for today. When you complete, they give you one, and if you complete like 3, they give you a different color, and 5 a different color, and so on. What are you training for right now? Are you training for anything? Most of us aren't training for anything. We get up, we go to work, we come home, we go to bed, and just repeat. And these days with all the COVID going on, we get up, we walk downstairs, or we walk across the room, we eat, we snack, we sit, we snack, we sit, we play with the computer some, we get on some conference calls, and we snack and we snack and we snack, and perhaps that's turned into, a bottle a night of wine, or a 6-pack of beer, or a few shots of liquor every night. Just something to do, right? So at the moment, I would say most of us, if you're not training for something specific, we're training for the activity of trying to avoid boredom. All right, so if we want to implement this new behavior of training for something, think about all the different things you might want to train for. Some people enjoy training for a 5K, whether you're walking a 5K or running a 5K, running a 10K, running a marathon, training to be able to compete in a swimming competition out in the ocean. There's so many different types of things that people train to compete in. Boxing, wrestling, track, all of these various things. So you got a track meet coming up. Maybe you're in the mile, and so you got to start training 3 months in advance for that, getting some longer, slow distance in, and then gradually going shorter and shorter, and adding all kinds of interval work in place, and strength training, and changing up your diet. So the reason why you want to be training for something is because when you're trying to achieve an outcome like completing a race or being able to compete in a wrestling event, you have an outcome that you want to not just achieve, but you want to win, right? You're not just trying for the sake of trying. You want to win, or you want to do the best you can do. So where are you going to place in your age group? Over the last few years, we've had some women at the gym that were running in these backyard burn races, and so they were placing in the top 5 and the top 10 in their age group, and it feels really good. A lot of training that goes on with that, but what kind of training, right? So of course, if you're going to compete really well at whatever event you're trying to train for, whatever your particular goal happens to be, you're going to have to make changes to your daily life. And for most of us, that's going to include changes to our sleeping patterns. It's going to include changes to what we're eating and how we're eating. And it's going to include changes to our exercise. So I would encourage you to pick something to train for. And if you don't have anything in mind to train for, you're not really into running, and maybe swimming for time wouldn't be a good thing, and wrestling is something that maybe you thought about doing 30 years ago, I'm going to entreat you to train for the game of life. All right? That's what I train for all the time, the game of life. So how do we play the game of life? How do we win the game of life? Well, so there's being alive, and then there's being able to enjoy your entire life, all the aspects of your life. So how's your mobility? How's your stamina? Can you go on a trip somewhere and walk up steep hills and lots of stairs and things like that? Mobility-wise, do you have trouble getting in and out of a car? Would you love to drive a sports car because you finally earned enough and saved enough money to be able to get that awesome sports car you've been thinking about your whole life, but the thought of trying to squeeze yourself into the car or somehow or another fold your body in such a way to sit down into the car just seems impossible to. So We're training, or I am training for the game of life because I want to be able to excel at all these different areas. I want to have the endurance to be able to do something like a Tough Mudder. 10, 12 miles. It's not easy. You got to be able to walk and run and then climb over things and go through water and mud and all those other kinds of crazy things. But just covering the distance, 10 or 12 miles, let alone all of the other activities that go on while you're there, that can be difficult in and of itself. So I walk 4, 5, 6 days a week, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles, depending on what I'm trying to achieve that particular week. That's part of my training. It's keeping me active daily. And I want to be able to get over obstacles, so I have to have the upper body strength to pull my body up into place. And so I do strength training 3 days a week, every single week. If I weigh more, it's going to make it harder for me to overcome those obstacles. It's going to be really hard for me to get out of my little tiny Miata car that sits on the ground. So, you got to keep that weight down for comfort, right? Getting onto that airplane when you have difficulty sitting in the seat, it's really rough. And I remember those days when I was just barely fitting into the seat and I kind of spilled over the armrest. That's not a very comfortable feeling, so I don't ever want to get back to doing that again. So those kinds of thoughts are in the back of my mind. But I also want to have the energy level just at 9 o'clock at night so I can get up and do something. I'm not just going to have to lay it on the floor and pass out, or just like when my neck was killing me all the time from that bad injury that I had. I don't want to have to just take a few shots of alcohol to make all of that go away. All right, so it's this idea of training for something. Pick something you want to train for. All right, now, let me give you something relevant to right now with all the COVID going on. If you want to train for winning the game of life, part of that is being able to beat viruses. So the better shape you're in, you want to make sure you don't become obese. And if you are obese, like I used to be, you want to get rid of that because it looks like you're much less likely to recover well from if you catch COVID if you're obese. Now, nobody's come out and said that directly, but just watching the news and all the different things they're talking about seems to be, one is age. That's a big deal, right? But what's something else that tends to come along with age? We tend to be much more obese as we get older and older and older. And I've noticed in my own practice here over the past 11 years that people tend to be sicker and they catch viruses like colds and the flu and such on a much more regular basis when they are obese. And as they get rid of their obesity, not only do their energy levels soar and their strength improves because they're lifting weights and getting out for their walks and bike rides and swims and this type of thing, but the incidence of how often they become sick drops way, way, way down. So 12, 13 years ago, before I started this whole plan for myself, I used to get sick on a regular basis, a few colds every winter, maybe something during the summer, maybe get knocked out for several days at a time. And now I get sick like every 4 or 5 years. It's a huge difference, not a small difference, it's a huge difference. So better food coming in, better sleeping habits, better exercise and training habits, and my immunity system is, 100 times better than it used to be. But I've seen this happen for many, many of my clients over the years as well, right? As they get in better shape, as they improve their diet, as they improve their sleeping habits and such, training for this game of life, they're suddenly not getting sick nearly as often as they used to. Okay. So if for no other reason we want to lose that extra body fat that bothers us mentally so that we can have the energy and we can have a better immunity system so that we can fight off things like COVID, maybe you could catch it and you wouldn't even know, okay? I'm sure that I've come in contact with hundreds of viruses over the past 10 years, but very few of them, 2, maybe 3, have impacted me at all during that entire time period. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll get back to you, and we'll see you next week. Take care.